English poetry about music, and here this we think it's William Peeris, page 97. When the philosophers Pythagoras and Tubal from the pure, simple hammer and stith substantial, the celestial sounds of music first made and did express, they fret them not from curiosities nor great riches. Out of the drew plain songs they judgeth the melody curious, Cornyshe readeth much harmony. Therefore of the plain notes to set a sure ground, maketh the modulation of most perfect sound. In curiosity of often a drowsy slippeth by, and in the plain true notes all the sweetness doth lie. Music is a science, and one of the song, with the sweet sounds to praise the plasmatur of own. They that of protavite will not tone well, VVV, they song shout in hell. He that leasteth his notes to tune well, and time must measure in Melpomene, one of the muses it's, if he meddle with the Megara infernal is the soundy, ebi et the flatus malangi to confound. The modulation of music is sweet and celestial, in the spheres of the planets maketh sounds harmonical. If we mold our music as the true tune is, in ein we shall sing Hosanna in excelsis. That's a poem, Renaissance poem, probably of William Peeris. Anyways, he says, the poem thus ends, quite properly, with mention of the music of the spheres. All along, however, it has been drawing dire conclusions about the moral evil of playing badly, miscalculating a change of rhythm and not keeping an instrument in proper tune, or being so curious that the plain true notes are portrayed by over fancy but not really good, musically playing. Huh?
Those instruments sometimes they had on the street, it was like half a sphere empty, and they were playing inside the emptiness of the sphere.
They're what?
It's a metal, like half a sphere, empty, like a ball, and they used to play inside, hitting different parts of the ball. You remember that? That's beautiful. I think that was an exquisite sound. We don't have that stuff.
Hitting
I saw it sometimes on the street, on the subway station.
Subway, oh, that thing. That's a steel drum?
It can be a drum because it's an empty ball.
It's a steel drum. It's tuned, though.
Why don't they have that instrument?
Well, they have all kinds of instruments. The stress on tuning in these verses as well as their notes towards the Greek world. In occasional words, references, and spellings seem peculiar, perhaps, but there does seem to have been a kind of Pythagorean spirit about the last days of the court of Henry VIII, involving...
I have the impression that the Greek spirit from the fall of Constantinople spread north much easier. And survived north also more easily, because in the south, Greece and Italy, they were very
maybe it survived. It could have gone to the north.
Severe with Christianity, the Middle Ages.
Dear, it could have gone to England then.
So in the dark, they seem to prosper better.
A kind of Pythagorean spirit about the last days of the court of Henry VIII, involving particularly a number of composers. Who are they? Here's one, William Cornyshe. Hmm. Hmm. It must be also remembered that problems of tuning and temperament were crucial to musical theorists throughout the 16th century, and that a good interest was taken in mathematical proportion this time because of the rhythmical considerations by the theorist of the arts nova in the 14th century. The particularly retarded state of England's English music being what it was, such a movement might seem to lie in a kind of twilight world between the medievalism of one set of concerns and the neoclassicisms of the others. A musician like William Cornyshe, composer and actor in and arranger of court theatricals for Henry VIII, was capable of writing something that looks very much like the Leckingfield proverbs and twisted about so as to allegorize the musical clavet in a particularly ethical way with polemical application.
You know, the word polemical is Greek. Polemos.
Polemical. Everything is Greek, I thought. Yeah, everything is basically Greek.
Yeah.
You are Greek.
Lucky.
I'm lucky. Am I lucky
Mm-hmm.
to be with a Greek? In a parable between information and music, formerly printed in editions of skeletons. Up through the 18th century, the injunctions about instruments, singing, and notation from the other set of proverbs are suddenly turned into what is almost a scene from a morality when Willie Information attempts to play the part of the good musician. He ends up, however, the victim of musical moral complaint, much more in the philosophical tone of the Leckingfield proverbs than in the excited, belligerent one of Skelton. Now this is, you have proverbs, and Skelton is the humorist guy. He makes a mockery. Remember they used to make mockeries? Remember how Shakespeare was made a mockery of, and Shakespeare would mock the others? Was that not true? I don't mock me. They shouldn't mock me as I read this. A second generation of humorous scholar musicians seemed more interested in making public advertisement of the virtues of their discipline than in conducting private wars or in giving coterie advice. Interesting examples of this appear in two dramatic interludes of the period between 1530. The first of this is less specifically propagandistic than the second, although the author's intention is made quite clear through the allegory. John Rastell's Interlude of the Nature of the Four Elements has been of most interest to scholars because of his extended treatment of recent geographical explorations and discoveries. At one point, however, Rastell, no musician himself, he was a lawyer and member of Parliament and translated the Celestina, contrives to work some musical discussion into what a modern playwright would consider a brief scene of build-up for a song, sensual appetite, a common figure in interludes and late moralities, and his troupe of dancers has just sung a cappella, three-part vocal piece, and then sensual appetite has performed a solo. It is suggested that a kite or tabulette, stringed instrument, or a drum to accompany the singing in the hands of a minstrel would make the whole thing sound better, at which suggestion sensual appetite and his crew leave in search of a tavern, and minstrels exuate cantado left on stage our humorist and Lincoln's well-known pair in school plays. The former begins. Here's the play. Now, if that sensual appetite can find any good minstrels around his mind, doth not he shall have good sport? Answer, and so shall we have, for a suite But what shall we do now, tell me, the meanwhile for our comfort? Then let us some lusty ballad sing. Nay, sir, by the Hyvenean king, for me, thinketh it serveth for nothing, for such peeverish, pikerish song, pikish song, may not be displayed, for therewith God is well pleased, honored, praised, and served in the church oftentimes among. Is God well pleased? Drewest thou thereby? Nay, nay, for there is no reason why. For it is not as good to say plainly, give me a spade, as give me a spade, va. If thou wilt have a song that is good, I have one of Robin Hood, the best that ever was made. They have a good song about Robin Hood. They do. Then the song is sung. Yanagarong's argument against Pythagoras song, that is, composed music written in mensural notation, as usually opposed to plain song or any one of the number of oral traditions such as plain chant. Folk song, popular dance tunes, is one which we will find about 60 years later incorporated into the Puritan polemic against elaborate church music. Oh, interesting. The Puritans are against elaborate church music. They wanted it simplified. Here he is allowed to clown it up a bit. The joke would be turned against fancy, learned music, with all its melismatic treatment of words. Notes also his piety about it all. Were it not for humanity's little encomium about the exalted nature of prick song, and for the fact that ignorance is, as always, to be put down finally. The objection that music serveth for nothing. Do you think music serveth for nothing? And the defense that it honors, praises, and serves God. You could say it honors, praises, and serves God. So music is either serves for nothing, or you could argue it honors, praises, and serves God, contain in germ much later musical debate. What is interesting is not even here against objections are religious, but it should not be forgotten that this little scene has the effect of introducing another kind of song, a plain song of Robin Hood, instead of a lusty ballad. Lusty ballad. We will be misled if we use the latter term, in our sense, the ballad, as a part song. So we're discussing. What are we discussing? The purpose of music. All right. We had read about how the poem thus ends quite properly with mention of the music of the spheres. We were reading from the Untuning of the Sky, because we're trying to retune the sky in a way by reading this.